Check out what the satisfied Dan Gemus real estate team clients are saying about working with the Dan Gemus team. Visit dangemus.com.
I got to thank you for being a voice of reason in a sea of insanity.
Now back to the Dan Gemus Real Estate Show on AM800.
Well, hello, friends. Thank you for joining us. Heather Marintet in studio with me today. And a reminder before we get to Patrice, if you're looking to make a move, give us a call. The Dan Gemus team. We service all of Windsor and Essex County. You can find us online at dangemus.com, dangemus.com, or give us a call, 519-566-5565. And Heather, what a fun first half hour we had today.
It's been good so far.
We still have just as much clutter as we did the first half hour, but
yes, yeah.
If
you need me to take a few piles out to the on my way out, you let me know.
Oh my gosh. I should let everyone know, if you were listening yesterday and you heard me complain about the basketball net and how much of a pain in the butt it was to install, the installation is now complete.
I can't wait to see. I didn't notice it when I came in, but I'm going to look now.
If you drive by our house, you will see a basketball net, and just think of me. Think of us trying to, it's a pain. Those backboards are very heavy, and installing it up in the air is a pain in the butt. But it's up. It's good news. So listen, it's time for our Landlord Tip of the Week with our good friend Patrice Surette from Goldmar Property Management. Hey, Patrice, how are you today?
Good. How are you guys?
Fantastic. Always good. Beautiful weather, which we can't complain about before it starts snowing, right?
Yep.
The big S word. So what's happening? What's happening in the wonderful world of tenancies? Are you seeing lots of vacancies right now, or what are you seeing?
Yeah, still a little bit slower. It's just the time of year, right? And now coming into Christmas, just people don't typically move between now and New Year's. I mean, we had some movement, but not as much as we see in the summer. So a little bit slower. Okay. Lots of inventory still, especially 2 bedrooms. So we're seeing still a lot of that, and a little bit more where we talked about last time was where renters can be a bit more selective, right? So they're just doing a lot of comparisons, because everything's priced about the same, and then they're just picking which one, how important parking is, or on-site laundry, or in-suite laundry. So they're trying to really pick what's best for them within the budget, because they can. There's just lots of choices out there for them, which is great for renters, right?
Yeah, that is nice.
Yeah, it is nice. It's a nice change for them, but at the same time for owners, it's starting to be a little bit more, price competitive, where they might be more willing to do some price adjustments or offer concessions to get those A-plus tenants. Right.
You know what? After a few years of having it, be very landlord, beneficial, it's not a horrible thing for the pendulum to swing a little bit on the other side now. And I'm a landlord, so I feel that way. I felt it's been tough for tenants over the last few years.
It has. And like we all talk about, right? Paychecks haven't gone up at the same pace as rent, things like that. So you see people are struggling a lot to pay and pay on time and things like that. It's been a bit of a shift. And we're not seeing like dramatic like we have with the increases, but more considerable, where they really take into account 2 weeks on the market and they're like, you know what, maybe we should come down a little bit just to be a bit more price aggressive. So it's just changing that dynamic a little bit. It's interesting. Yeah.
No, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. So listen, today we want to talk a bit about persistent late rent. So that's basically an N8 form, is it not?
It is N8. Yeah.
Okay.
So So basically, like we know, rent is due on the 1st of the month, and a landlord has that right to receive their rent on or before the 1st of the month. So typically, and especially we've seen it a lot since COVID, but even after, like with these price stresses and things like that, where tenants are paying a little bit late or sometimes a lot late. People might be waiting and they pay on the 20th when child tax credit comes in. So something the landlord can do is they can issue this N8 notice, which basically tells the tenant, hey, we don't agree with the payment practice you've started to do, right? So we would never recommend you do it after the first month, second month. Really, the landlord-tenant board would consider after 6 months out of 12 being late, some kind of volume like that. You can give them an N8 notice. They do have the right to a hearing, but basically it says we'd like you to correct your payment practice and pay on the 1st. And then in the hearing, so you do have to pay a filing fee, and the tenants go to a hearing, and basically it's not for termination. It's just to get an order that the tenant will pay on or before the 1st in full, and the order would read that they have to do that for the next 12 months. So there is a little bit of an expense for the filing fee. If you represent yourself, there's no further fees, but if you get a paralegal, right, you have to pay for that. However, then you've got an order that says that tenant has to pay on or before the 1st, right? So it kind of lines up their payment and just shows them it's important that you pay your rent on the 1st, especially because landlords have to pay their mortgages sometimes on the 1st, right?
Sure.
So,
yes.
so it's not a termination. It's not a real, it's just really saying, hey, please pay when you're supposed to, right? So
now, if you have that order,
that.
Patrice,
Yep.
what happens if they don't pay on the 1st of the month? Do you have to then
if they
file
don't-
again and wait?
No, you file it for a breach, they call it. So if they don't pay in full on time, you file for a breach of that order, and it's not another hearing. Basically, the landlord-tenant board will send a new order out that gives you enforceability through the sheriff. So you can actually terminate the tenancy if they breach that order to pay on time. So it is an eviction in the end. If they don't correct their behaviors, it can end in that. But the real meaning for it is to correct the behavior of the payment timing.
And like you said, this is more of an issue if a tenant is persistently late.
Right.
I have the way I look at it, right, with my tenants. It happens every once in a while where they'll say, Dan, listen, do you mind if I pay next Friday? Because, I've got whatever. You know what?
Yep.
As long as you communicate with me, all good. Not a problem.
Yep.
Thank you for letting me know.
Yep.
Go on with your day. It's to me, if I've had them in the past, tenants where they just always an excuse, or they can't come up with the full amount, or whatnot.
Or they
but
don't
to me,
communicate.
as long as they don't communicate exactly.
Right.
As long as you
Yep.
communicate, I've got no issues. I'm a very
You're very flexible.
very nice person.
And-
I'm very
and
flexible. Just
And we learned that through COVID, I would say. It's like landlords we didn't have to have that flexibility before. Most tenants paid on the 1st. They were afraid not to, right? But with COVID and people just struggling financially and everything changed so much that, people started to be a bit more flexible. But at some point, when they don't communicate, you don't know what's going on. You still have to pay the mortgage because you can't say to the bank, oh, my tenant didn't pay. Can I pay you on the 20th? Like, they're not going to let you do that, right?
Well, and you make a great point, though, Patrice, because not every landlord has the ability to be flexible.
No.
Sometimes they have payments to make, and they're already scraping by, and they need the funds. I get that, too.
Yep. So this is just a good way to try and line up both expectations, right? So telling the tenant, like, listen, I've been flexible in the past, but it's gone on too long, so now we need you to line back up, right? And sometimes it's just enough pressure to put them back in line. That's all they need is that pressure. And sometimes they don't, and it has to unfortunately go the next steps. But, it's a good tool to use. But like I said, it shouldn't, you wouldn't do it the first month they're late. It's usually around, we say 4 times. If they're 4 times in a row, absolutely, right? 6 times, definitely, you should have done it. But not once or twice. You just kind of watch their ledger and then focus on them if they're getting up into that 4 to 6 times they've been late. Or, they just move in and immediately start to pay late. Then you can absolutely, do that right away. Because it's one of our few rights as a landlord is to be paid on time.
Yeah, few rights for sure.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. Yeah. But yes, it is one that we should be allowed to do, right?
No doubt.
So,
Yeah, ultimately, you want a happy tenant. You want a happy.
Sure.
If both parties are happy, it's great, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's when the pendulum swings one way or the other that you have some unhappy parties, and next thing you know, there's issues, right? What are you seeing from a landlord-tenant board standpoint? Are things speeding up or still the same? Or what are you seeing there?
A little bit more. Like, we're getting our court dates, and they seem like we get a couple, and we're like, oh, that's not bad, right? But really, what we're comparing it to is when it was a year, right?
Yeah.
That's
true. Now 11 months.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
So, but before COVID, I was 4 to 6 weeks start to finish for an eviction, right? Like, that included the filing, the hearing, the eviction, right? So that was what our standard used to be. So now we've got this standard of like, oh, well, it's not a year, So it's like not that bad, right? But
it's
we're
like when
probably
gas
getting...
went from like 60 cents to $1.20. You're like, oh my gosh, and it goes down $1.10. Oh, it's a good
look
deal.
at us, we're so
Yay.
lucky.
Yeah. So it's a perceived improvement, but I think we're probably like 3 to 4 weeks. Oh, sorry, months. We're getting hearing dates.
Oh my goodness, that's still
Yeah.
crazy.
Still a lot.
Yeah, it's still a lot for sure. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I will fly there with her if we can.
Yeah. Okay. So there you go. So, I appreciate the information, Patrice. Thank you so
course.
much, and enjoy the rest of your week. And we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, guys. Okay.
All right. Patrice Surette with the Goldmar Property Management there. And pretty crazy, Heather. Like, it's, one of those things where ultimately, like I said, you want happy tenants. You want a happy landlord.
Yeah, you don't want the tension there,
No.
right? If it can be avoided. But it can't always be avoided.
We've been lucky where we've always had great tenants. I shouldn't say always, but 99% of the time, it's been fantastic tenants. And a couple of non-paying over the years, but we've been very lucky considering some have much worse luck than we have.
Definitely.
So, but you know what? We've always respected them, and it's an open line of communication. So again, if you have an issue, give me a shout. I'll take care of it.
Yep.
We don't complain about fixing anything, and we just go fix it.
Which is a wonderful thing
100%.
to do for the tenants, right? It's what should be done.
That's what should be done. Exactly. So, okay, we'll take a break. We're going to come back. Oh, do you see we give away the gift card for the Richmond Popcorn Company?
Ooh, yeah, let's do it.
We're going to give it away right now. You want to be caller number
8.
Caller number 8, Heather picks. So 519-792-2559. 519-792-CKLW. Caller number 8 gets the gift card for the Richmond Popcorn Company. Lots more to come right here on the Dan Gemus Real Estate Show.